Hello, salam, shalom, namaste, sat sri akal, aloha, hola, ciao, bonjour, buna, and privyet. It's so amazing to be with you again. And you know what? You're going to be so happy you're joining us today because we have such a cool guest. And our guest today is Kat Nieh, and she is a dating clarity coach. Welcome, Kat.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much, Samia, for having me. And I'm so excited to share with the audience how to manifest and co-create the love they always wanted.
Yay! Awesome,
Yay.
awesome, awesome. So, Kat, please tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so like you shared earlier, I'm a dating clarity coach. So I help my clients who are dating, single, right, or early stages of dating to get clear about who and what they want in a relationship in order to really find the one that they really want and also co-create that relationship that they've always desired.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And can you tell me a little bit more about like this clarity piece of
Mm,
you being a dating clarity coach?
yeah.
Uh, yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so that's why I called myself a dating clarity coach. So I'm not just any kind of dating coach because there's plenty of, dating and relationship advice out there that are amazing and great. But what I found more effective is to actually take a step back and get clear first, like from within, right? To figure out who is it that I truly want in a relationship? What does that really look like? And what do I need to really feel fulfilled and loved and happy? And that's where I came out with this clarity aspect of it, of creating a love vision first, right? So I have a guided journal that I released recently and to really help people with that, to, create a really clear love vision. So it makes it easier for them to go out. And when they're dating, there's less of, well, I'm not sure what I really want, or I don't know sure how to talk to this person. I don't know if we have alignment, or is this really what I want? Like, because when people start dating, they can get swayed of like, well, I like this person, so maybe what they want is what I want too. So it's like removing all those doubts, removing all those uncertainties to get so clear about who and what they want in a relationship. So it makes dating so much more easier. And even when you're in the relationship, especially in the early stages of people figuring out, are we in alignment? Are we really, is this really a good fit? When you have that clarity, it's so much easier to have those conversations going, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I need. This is what I want. And is this something that you could fulfill? And is this a relationship you want to create together?
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is so important. You just made me think about maybe like a different dozen movies that I've seen where the theme is people are confused, and they get into all kinds of trouble and there's all kinds of drama that gets created. Like, for
Mhm.
example, with all these love triangle plots in movies where because people don't have clarity about what they really need and what they really want.
Mhm.
And actually thinking about these scenarios, it's so interesting that you mentioned both, getting clear on both what you need and what you want, because sometimes those two things are not the same. Like, hey, thanks for tuning into this episode. Hope you're getting value out of it. For your information, this episode has been sponsored by the Happiness 101 program. Are you a change maker, coach, trainer, or healer? Are chains of fear holding you back from making the impact and income you desire? Using a unique combination of positive psychology and the spiritual wisdom of our most effective change makers, the Happiness 101 program helps you break through your limiting beliefs and manifest the abundance and success you desire with fun and ease. Interested? Book a free Happiness 101 exploration call with me, your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Just use my online calendar link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
There's a difference with it too, because And there's also other influences, right? There's a lot of society influences, cultural influences, family
Yes.
influence, even friends thinking like, well, this is what you should, who and what you should be dating, right? Like, this
Mhm.
is what your relationship should look like. And so she's looking around us for other relationship models. We assume what what we see is that's what a relationship is, right? And I find it really sad, which is what I really want to help change is that I feel like as you're in a relationship, your relationship should get better. It
Mm.
should improve. It should deepen. It should connect even more, not kind of deteriorate or kind of feel like, oh, this is just what it is, or people just kind of get stagnant or just kind of give up in the relationship. And I find that really sad. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing to really help people figure out what is it they really want, to find that true alignment. And if you find that misalignment, actually learn how to have a conversation with your partner to go, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want, and have those levels of open and safe and transparent communication of, like I said, what you need and want in a relationship.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. When it comes to society, in terms of the expectations that we feel pressured to live by, oh my God, that is such a, oh, I mean, wow. I mean,
Yeah, I
potentially
totally
a big
understand.
problem.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I think that's why this process is so unique and so personalized, right? Like that's why I created this guided journal of like asking all these prompts, all these questions about different aspects of your life to really get a holistic view of what is that you really need and want. Like when you take away what your parents think you should have, take away what society feels like you should be doing right now at whatever age you're at, or whatever your friends feel like you should be doing, or you're seeing your friends and feel like, well, they're dating that type of person, maybe I should be doing the same. When you take away those external influences, really figure out what is it that in your heart and your soul and what you're looking for, that's the most important part because every relationship is different. You can't look at one relationship and go like, I want to model that exactly and do exactly that because there's so much behind the door, behind the scenes that you don't see. And that's how you figure out what it is, what you want for yourself is that clarity first,
Yeah.
and then you'd be able to have those conversations. And then you'd be able to figure out like, okay, this is important to me. These are my non-negotiables. These are my relationship values that are important to me that I really want to honor. And that's where the guide comes out where it goes like, okay, this is my value. But what does that value look like for me? Because my value and someone else's value, it might be the same word, but it could
Mhm.
be totally different, right? Like it could show up in a very different way. So when you figure out what is my like, my own particular formula, then it's easy to say, hey, this is how I show up. This is how I need to be loved. Can you do that for me? Right?
Yes. Ah, oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. Can you help me dig a little deeper in this idea of like how do you even begin to get more clear about um so you use the word non-negotiables,
Hmm.
versus everything else.
Hmm.
Um uh, how like what are non-negotiables um how, I mean, we know what non-negotiables are. They're non-negotiables, but in a relationship context, how do I figure
Yeah.
out what truly I should be like, this is non-negotiable? Because, there's so much concern that I know I've experienced and I've seen my friends struggle with in
Hmm.
terms of um like when we have created some kind of standard or vision that we're like trying to
Yeah.
hold on to in terms of our search for that ideal partner, and then being told, oh no, you're setting your standards too high, you're being too specific, you'll never get a partner, you'll never be able to find a person who's such a perfect fit. And yeah, this is like such a constant feedback when
Hmm.
when when I know I have been in conversations about, these are my standards,
Mhm.
that it 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 can really trigger self-doubt and be like, yeah, am I really doing a smart thing by setting all these standards and expectations about who I want?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get where you're coming from. And I hear a lot of people experience that. And what I want to share with everyone listening is that when people tell you that, it's because they have their own baggage, limiting beliefs, their own vision or their own perspective of what a relationship looks like for them. And oftentimes when you go out there and say, this is what I'm looking for and this is what I want, that challenges what they believe in.
Mhm.
Right? They believe in, well, I can't, all the good men or women are taken, what, like whatever relationship happens, that always deteriorates after all. Like, people are only the best in the, only put their best foot forward in the beginning. All those like beliefs are actually what creates the problems because people believe in it and they just reenact that pattern versus going, well, what is it that I really want? Right? Because when you know what you want, you're not as swayed by what other people think, right? Because like, "No, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want." And when you have that strong belief in yourself, that's how you manifest. That's how you draw that energy towards you. And, from my own experience, like when I get really clear, that's the kind of energy that I attract in where I go, oh, this is interesting. I'm noticing, all these men that I'm dating now, they all have really similar qualities that I'm looking for. And then when meeting a right person, goes like, wow, you have a really amazing combination of all the qualities I'm looking for. And here's the distinction too, of we have in our mind of this is what I want, right? This is a vision of what I'm looking for, what I want. But it's also be willing to take a step back and go, I know what I want, but what is the real reason behind wanting that? And
Mm,
when you see that, okay, this is actually a deeper reason of why I want this, then you could see, well, what are some other ways you could actually achieve that same want, that same why, without being exactly this particular way initially imagined. So
mm.
there's a part of knowing what you want, but it's more about knowing the why of what you want and be able to also let go and step back and go, all right, universe, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. And bring that person to me,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
then also going that, hey, this person might not have that quality immediately, but is it something that they could cultivate? Is it something that they do have that quality, but they just show up in it, they show you it in a different way.
Okay, now you're making me think about a bunch of Indian dramas that I've been watching. We always have Indian dramas on in my house. My mom, you know, I mean, her English is pretty good, but, she still loves watching things in our language. And so, um, we have one TV in the house, so we have to watch it together. And so we end up watching quite a bit of Indian television. And just recently, we were watching this one drama that had this actual theme going on where the heroine and the hero, like on the surface, they seem to be like very different people. But
Mhm.
there's one person in their life that's the mom of the hero, as a matter of fact, who first gets to know the heroine. Like she meets her randomly somewhere and she starts to connect, and the girl and the boy's mom actually become like best friends. And the mom is like, my God, I think you'd be the perfect fit for my son because you have all of these qualities that match with his core values and stuff. But the son is a very interesting character. And does he has he can't like he sees certain surface level differences between him and the girl, and he's like, no, no, she's not for me. She's not for me. We're not a match. But the mom is like, no, no, please just give this a chance. Get to know her better because really, when you look at this deeper level, you guys have the same values of, serving your families, loving your families, and
Mhm.
The way that you live out your life, there's like so much commonality in that. Um, so disregard these surface level differences. I mean, the dude in the drama, I mean, it's a drama, so he's still having issues with that.
Mhm.
But like you can see the wisdom in what the mom's talking about actually. Um, and the girls already recognized this because she's much more well, the guy is having more challenges because he's not in a good mental health space.
Mhm.
So he needs to deal with that. But you can see where it's heading, that once he gets in a better mental health state, that he will also see this reality that his mom has already seen, the girl has already recognized. And so she's like, well, been willing to sort of be more patient and sort of um, give the relationship a chance, which otherwise, I mean, it would have been like, nope, this guy's a lost cause, forget about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. And just like that story that, that TV drama really highlighted is that oftentimes people are dating, they get caught up with chemistry, the sexual chemistry, or if we have similar hobbies, and they find things that a little more on the surface level, right? Of thinking, well, if that is alignment, if I'm sexually attracted, if we have similar hobbies, then things will be okay, right? But exactly like what that mom said, it's more about the deeper values.
Mhm.
And just want to share a little bit like about values in the sense of, values are our deepest level of programming, right? It drives your behavior, it drives how you make decisions, and it dictates how your actions are, even creates your list of priorities in a sense, right? And we know that those values, those priorities affect different areas of life as well. So, I mean, the easiest way to look at it, right, is that your values determine what you do with your time
Yeah.
and how you evaluate if that's time well spent, right? So being able to have these conversations with your partner or someone you're dating in the beginning to go like, what are your values? What are important to you? And understand, okay, what is that word, that label that they put on, if it's like commitment or communication or whatever it is, right? Like to ask more of what does that look like to you? What is that? Why is that important to you? Kind of find out the deeper meanings and how it's being how it shows up for them or how they need to be received. And when you find that alignment, that's how you create the deeper, stronger relationships, because when that's alignment, it makes things so much easier. And oftentimes when values are in a misalignment, that's
Mhm.
when conflict happens, right? And then not like conflict is bad, but that gives you opportunity to really figure out how could you work together to find that common ground after. So
Yes.
yeah, finding those core values and be able to understand that, it makes things so much easier.
Yes, I really appreciate what you're saying. And I think when I start to think about the idea of non-negotiables from the perspective that what's non-negotiable is my values
Mhm.
rather than the specifics of how it might look like. Um, uh, uh, because like, for example, if I have a value for peace, I mean, that's one of my deepest values. Um, Peace can look so many different ways. I mean, we can live peace in so many different ways. It can look like, I just get to sit and read a book and not be disturbed while I'm reading. Um, but it can also be experienced in other contexts. Like if, for example, if I'm living in a home and there's kids around and they're running around, and so there isn't maybe as much time as I might want in an ideal scenario to
Yeah.
just be able to sit in quiet and read because the kids are running around. Um,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean I still can't experience peace in my life. It just means it's going to look a little bit different and I have to maybe shift my mindset and my thinking a little bit in terms of how I can experience peace in the context of the kids running around.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also your values adapting,
Mm.
right? If you have that value, it's a little different when you're single. It's a little different when you're in a relationship. It's a little different when you have life circumstances that change, like having kids and whatnot, right? So it's learning that you have that base value, but how does that continue and grow and evolve? And that's why this is a continual conversation with your partner. It's not just, hey, we had this baseline in the beginning, we have it set, then you're good. Right? No, you have to keep on conversing, talking about it, and also values could shift, values could change, values could kind of, you might label it in a certain way, like say peace now, but it might mean a different word later for you as you continue aging, as you continue experiencing life. That peace might be another word for you that makes more sense to you as you grow and evolve. And because we're all growing, we're all evolving. So how we see our values also grow and evolve and change with us too.
Yes, exactly. Because like for me, this has definitely been very true. Like for me, in my younger days,
Mm.
I think like even up to like maybe my mid 20s or something, for me, peace meant I needed solitude. I needed alone time, me time, because being around other people, like I didn't have the skills that I do now in terms of, first of all, managing my own emotions. And I had very little ability to manage or deal with anyone else's um, hard emotions. And so, like, um, the best I could do at that time with, where I was at and the skills that I had was like to just step away and just be like, I just need to be by myself because I can't deal with emotional upheaval. I had a very low tolerance for it. And so for me, yeah, like for me to have peace then, I really did need a lot of solitude. But as I've healed and grown, now I can be with people. And even when there's like stuff going on, like difficult things going on, I'm actually one of the people who stays the most calm and peaceful in those circumstances. And I like to, you know, really think that not only am I able to stay calm and peaceful in those situations for myself, but more and more now I'm able to actually help the people around me begin to feel more calm and peaceful as well. So as my capacities have changed, the way I experience peace has also been shifting and changing.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool. Yay.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story and how and to illustrate how it's evolved and changed through time. It definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, and so in the context of relationships, to realize that it's actually a good thing that we will change, and to be with a partner who is open to changing and growing with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the part where a lot of relationships, as they're kind of progress for a longer time, starts having those misalignments is because the two partners aren't growing together, right? Like one person might be growing or some person might not be, or, they're not having these conversations to make sure they're still on the same page as well, right? Because as you continue growing and evolving, what your goals are, what your vision of what you like to be could start changing. And that's where people start, going to different paths or, they start different levels of growth. And that's what creates, the disharmony in a relationship, right? Because you guys aren't on the same page anymore. You're not the same person anymore of when you guys started, right? So it's being very intentional and very conscious of how you are also growing and evolve your relationship as life continues. Because oftentimes people get so focused on other areas of life, like career is a big one, right? People get so focused on career. Or when people have families, they're so focused on the kids, right? Like when that big, like, another area of life kind of really starts changing and really taking all your focus away, it's actually being really important to really think of how to still work on your relationship at the same time, right? Don't let it be like a alarm out there of like flashing lights and stuff going, there's something going on, there's something wrong, right? Like this is the warning sign. You don't want to wait for the warning sign. You want to go before you get there, let's make it preventative. Let's have more deeper conversations. Let's have regular check-ins to see, hey, how are things going? What is it? Is there anything that's been bothering that you haven't mentioned or want to take the time to talk about, right? And when you create that safe space with your partner on a regular basis and to be like caring about the relationship as a whole, so it's not just one person or the other, it's actually together, right? If as a relationship as a whole, what is it that we have to do to continue making it better? And having those conversations.
I love this point that you're making of don't wait till things have become bad or the flashing lights are now on. It's like take preventive measures because what's that saying? Prevention is uh,
The best medicine, I think, or something like
something like that. Yes, and it's like so much more fun and easy
that.
to like prevent and do the
Mhm.
stuff that needs that uh, that will help you to prevent than to end up in a crisis and then to have to deal with it. I mean,
Yeah.
eventually, I mean, I just being human, there will be times that we will miss the necessary prevention work, and there
Uh,
will be times when we might find ourselves in crisis, but at least if we have this value of of prevention and this value of, you know, working on our relationship to make it better and grow in a conscientious way, then we can minimize the number of times in our life when we find ourselves in this crisis seemingly out of the blue or unexpectedly.
And yeah, oftentimes when you think like, it came out of the blue, like, where did that come from, right? But honestly, that's been something that's been building little by little by little in the background until it pretty much explodes, right? So it's actually preventing that ahead of time by like, okay, before it turns into this big argument, before it turns into the big disagreement, like let's have a conversation first. Let's dig, I think it's also work on both sides, right? To have that awareness, for example, in myself of going, okay, why did I get triggered? Why, what was I thinking or what beliefs led to me thinking this was an issue or problem or whatnot? And actually do the internal work, having that self-reflection, that awareness within myself. So when I do have that conversation with my partner to tell him, hey, I got triggered because of this reason and now trying to come together to find a solution versus going, I'm blaming you, you did this, you did that. Because that never helps, right? It's actually coming to them like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I experienced and this is what I need your help to come in with, or I need to hear where your perspective is because maybe what I thought of what you are thinking was totally off, right? So I want to hear from your own perspective. What happened? What were you thinking? And let's try to find a way to minimize this going forward. And
Yes.
it's by having those different kind of conversations than just waiting for like, yeah, a blow up to happen or just, where you can't, where the emotions are so strong that it's hard to calm down and really think in a very objective way of what happened.
Yes, and you just reminded me of a research study that totally validates what you're saying because so in this study, this was the researchers actually what they wanted to look at was with couples, how frequently uh, couples talk about things that bother them in the context of their relationship and see if there was any relationship between the frequency of these kind of conversations between them and the quality of their relationship in terms of the their overall sense of happiness and being together and feeling a sense of yes, our relationship is healthy and we're in a good place. And actually, interestingly, the researchers, they they before they started collecting the data, they had an expectation that less frequent talking about things that bother you in the context of your relationship would be likely to correlate with the state of being in a happy relationship. Because if you're like complaining about this bothers me, that bothers me, it seems to make logical sense that that kind of that might create a sort of not happy
Mhm.
environment in your relationship.
Mhm.
But interestingly, what they found out was that the couples who had the happiest relationships, who felt most happy and satisfied and committed in their relationships, actually spoke more frequently about the things that bothered them. And the thing was that you also beautifully highlighted, Kat, was that the reason why the more frequent talking didn't end up creating unhappiness in the relationship is because of the manner in which that they spoke about what bothered them. So they did it in a way that was loving and oftentimes playful and definitely like in this context where they felt safe to express to each other what was bothering them. And it basically served the function of nipping in the bud things
Mhm.
that could have potentially grown and created more trouble later on, just like you were saying. So research actually totally backs you up.
Yes. That's awesome. And yeah, and also it's from personal experiences too, because I admit I used to do that too, and that's where I learned that communication style from other people, from other role models, and realizing, wait, that's not effective. That just builds up more yelling, more disagreement, like nothing's being resolved. Both sides are just pissed off. And it's like, well, how can I do this differently? I think that's where I was trying to learn and experience and kind of find out information. I'm amazed. I totally want to hear the research. I'll ask you about it after. That yeah, it's like finding out, like having these they feel like harder conversations, but they're actually conversations that actually bring you closer. Like I totally agree that part of thinking that, having these difficult conversations, oh, I don't want to break the peace. Things are going well, right? I don't want to bring that up.
Mhm.
But that's actually when you do need to bring it up
Yeah.
because there's something that within you that's feeling there's something a little off, something that I'm not feeling right. And have those conversations with your partner, that allows your partner to understand, oh, I didn't realize you were feeling that way. I didn't know me doing this meant you thought a certain way or you were feeling it triggered you in some way that made you uncomfortable when that was absolutely not my intention at all, right? So when you have those conversations ahead of time and when you talk to both sides and both sides openly tell each other, wait, that's what happened or that's how you saw what happened or oh, that's what you were feeling. It's just that openness, that understanding, that conversations creates more of that loving, that connection and deeper you know that deeper connection with each other because you don't often do that with a lot of other people out there unless they're really close friends, but that takes time to build. And your partner is one of the most important people in your life because you know how your sister, the five people you spend the most time with is like who you are in a sense,
Yeah.
right? Like your partner is with you all the time, right? That's your life partner. So you need to be able to build that deepness, that connection with them. And you see people out there, right? With like when they have a really good relationship with their partner, they're not alone anymore. You have a partner in life to handle those life challenges, to handle those difficult things happening in life because you're not alone and you have that support system to get through it together. But when you don't create that connection with your partner and you're trying to tackle it on your own, it feels tiring, it feels draining. You feel like you're battling against your partner as well because that person you haven't got the bot in or you haven't really brought your partner in to where you are together. You're not
Yes.
going at it as a team. You're going at it as an individual.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Kat. I think there might also be a bit of a cultural element here, maybe, because I was having this conversation with actually one of my cousin's sisters a few weeks ago, where, um, y- you know, because one of the communities of people that I love to work with and serve are survivors of domestic violence. I'm actually a trained crisis counselor
Mm,
for domestic violence survivors. And that particular day when my cousin and I were talking, and my sister was actually also there with us, the reason we started having this conversation was because one of our friends in the community is going through some difficult times, and uh, my cousin was sharing with me what because she knows about my working with survivors of domestic violence, and she wanted to get my feedback on, hey, with what we're seeing in this couple's relationship, is this something that's potentially abusive, or is it just more like normal conflict?
mm,
And anyway, I won't get into the details of what that situation was, but part of the conversation that came out of our starting from there was this, that in our culture, and now right now I'm talking about our Indian Pakistani culture, it's almost like we're trained as women um, not to talk to our husbands about things that are bothering us,
mm,
especially about our husbands. Uh, and uh, because there is this expectation, or like if you are you know, traditional, in the traditional aspect of the culture, you know, the relationship between husband and wife, um honestly, it's not an equal relationship. It's not an equal relationship. And what we are taught as women is that, you know, you need to, um, like, your husband is in some ways like in a superior position to you. And he has the right to tell you what to do, and you need to listen and follow his lead.
mm,
And you can't complain to him about him, because if you complain, if you question his decisions, his attitudes, his behaviors, then that is seen as disrespectful,
mm,
and that is not acceptable.
mm,
And so when things do bother women in their relationships, where do they go? What do they do? And so what happens is that they talk with each other. And so it's so common for women to be talking with each other about all these problems that they're having with their husbands.
mm.
And they do their best, I suppose, to advise each other on how to deal with things. Um, and sure, I'm sure it's helpful to a certain extent. And there are problems that you just can't solve by trying to deal with it on your own level. There's some problems where you have to bring it up with the person that you're having that experience of problem with.
Yeah. Well, first off, I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you do. That is, wow. So thank you for helping all those people out there that are experiencing that. And yeah, you highlighted a really great point of the whole cultural aspect and how that really influences what a relationship is now, right? Even though that is something that was established hundreds of years ago or, generations and stuff like that, but that still affects how we are living today because that's what's passed on from generation to generation to generation. And I think that's where we're in a really unique kind of space right now in a sense where people are starting to and willing to do something different. They're willing to show up differently, wanting to have a different kind of relationship and be able to break beyond that cultural, but beyond that societal like expectations or desire or obligations and whatnot to create a relationship that they want to make them happy. Right. So yeah, I can totally understand that. And that also highlights in the part too of your partner can't be your everything, right? There are certain conversations that, it is easier to talk to a fellow woman about it, or talk to a friend who could understand your situation, could to really kind of think through or process what's going on with you. There are times where it's may not be as easy to process with your partner immediately,
Yeah.
because you need to do your own internal work first. You need to understand what happened or what were you feeling. And sometimes it's easier to have that conversation with a friend or with a coach, with a therapist or a trained professional that can really help you through that, to really process what you're going through before you come back and talk to your partner and go, hey, this is what happened and how can we resolve it together? Because in an argument, in a disagreement, one side needs to back down or one needs to step aside, or whatever you want to label it. But there's a part of needing to kind of move away from the tension to do something different in order to change what the result is going to be, right? Because if both people are still battling and fighting, it's just headbutting. You're not really getting anywhere. But if someone starts shifting and go, okay, I'm not going to fight with you anymore. Let's actually find a resolution, or let's take some time away for both of us to calm down first and then come together, right? So it is having that element of, yeah, maybe you do need to take that away from your partner, have a conversation with other people who understand or who can really take that time to process with you what's going on before you bring it back to your partner. And just with your situation, talking about how culturally you can't really bring that back with your partner. And that is really challenging. You totally
Yeah,
see that.
and the thing is that it's not like our culture is uniform, you know? I mean, I think this is one way that some people in the culture are, but I
Yeah.
think that is a problematic way. And the people who are in these kinds of relationships, like you can see
Yeah.
the suffering that they're experiencing. And so I'm like, I want to look at people within my own cultural community who are following a different model. And there are lots of them. Like I
Yeah.
have so much love and appreciation for my grandparents, especially like my on my mom's side, my grandfather and grandmother. They were like such an inspiring example because they did not fit into this kind of traditional
Yeah.
um setup in how they treated each other. Not at all. Like um I mean, in some ways, um maybe again, like on the surface of things, and maybe, we still had um like my family by and large still leading a very traditional lifestyle, where we have always lived in a joint family system, and we definitely have a strong ethic for respecting our elders, and there's definitely like hierarchy that we recognize in terms of the different roles that different people in the family structure serve. And but what my grandparents demonstrated was that the the power dynamics um there is a difference between the um how you exercise power in the context of performing your role of doing this duty or doing that duty. And there's a difference between that and how you actually love and treat each other and relate to each other at a human level. And so it's like, yes, you can have different roles in the family where, like, my grandmother, she was a homemaker. She didn't go out to work and stuff. Never. I don't think she ever did any work to earn money. She was a homemaker through and through. And my grandfather was the one who was, going out there, being the breadwinner, all of that good stuff. So in that case, in that sense, they had that traditional
Mhm.
separation of roles. But when they related to each other as a couple, they 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 were beautifully, wonderfully, like you didn't feel like my grandfather was, at a higher status or something like that. They were just so I mean, they consulted with each other, about everything. They valued each other's opinion on every little big thing. And like when my grandfather passed away, it just really, really hard for my grandma. And
Mm,
you could see something in her that like she lost and never quite recovered.
mm. Yeah, that's an amazing relationship. I think that's the type of relationship a lot of us all aspire to, right? To be in a relationship like that where you're both respected, your opinions, even though there's different roles, but then it's still respected and loved, and there's compassion, and I
Yeah.
think that's why you're so touched by it too. And I'm even really touched by it. It's that level of connection between them that really inspire you. Be like, that's a relationship I'm looking for. That's the one I want.
Yes.
And I think there's a really uniqueness of what happened between your grandparents of, yeah, they both have their role. It sounds like a very traditional, the man is the breadwinner, the woman is a homemaker. And I think how that's changing now in society is that, now that's not always the same, right? It's blending, it's different. And I think what makes a couple work is understanding what their roles are,
Mm,
embracing the roles, accepting it, and also respecting the other person's role in it too.
yeah.
And also be able to go, okay, if that is your role, how can I support you in that role too? Or what are things that, okay, like if that's your role, then, what are some, underlying things that you need to be in that role? What are the lines that you need support in that? Or like then be able to communicate that with your partner. And also other side going, okay, that's your role. I'm not going to try to fight with you, right? But I think oftentimes now when because the roles are not as clearly defined, it makes it really muddy and unclear, and people are battling trying to figure out this power dynamic thing when it doesn't need to be a power dynamic. It's just
Yeah.
more of a how do you collaborate? I didn't want to change that. Let's how do you collaborate together as with your partner as a team to work towards it together versus going, I need to have the power. This is what I do. I'm the one who makes the decisions. Like when it turns into that, I'd say it's a little more like on the ego side of like, this is what I need to do this and it has to be my certain way. It's a level of control, right? So
Yes.
when you let go of that and going, okay, this is not about my ego. This is not about who's right or wrong. This is not about who has the power or whatnot. That's why I was saying like the relationship is a separate entity in a sense.
Yes.
How do you do things for the best of the relationship as a whole
Mm,
versus what's best for me or what's best for you? I mean, that is important because it comes together what's best for the relationship. But it's real, and that's when times of arguments, it's not about I'm right, you're wrong. This is how it needs to happen. Like it's more about, okay, well, what can we do to come together to create that solution, to create that unity and create that collaboration?
yes. 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 And I think I just realized what I was trying to express, and you talked about in terms of what was going on with my grandparents, that was so beautiful,
Yeah.
is that they had the different roles, um, but they valued each other's roles equally. Like one person didn't think the other person's role was more important than the
Um,
other. They were like, yes, your role, what you're doing is just as important as what I'm doing. And both of these things are needed for us to have a healthy, happy family.
Yes, I love that you said that and made that distinction because that is so important. It's be able to value and respect and go and honor their role in the relationship and what value they bring, and to go and actually also show that appreciation too. It's like, thank you for doing what you do, because when you're a partnership, there are always going to be strengths and weaknesses and whatnot, but when you kind of come together and can leverage each other's strengths, help each other's weaknesses, and come together and value each other and what each other does for the relationship, for the family, for bringing in income, or creating the lifestyle they want, like all that elements, it definitely makes a relationship a lot stronger, because I think that's where the power part comes out of, well, Power means someone is more or less, or someone's stronger or weaker. And it's not really that case, because that strength and weakness, it's based on the scenario, right? It's very different. Based on the scenario, one scenario could be like, that's powerful, but another scenario, that's actually a weakness, right? So it's blending that together as a couple to create that strength.
Yes.
One.
Yes.
Mhm.
You just made me think about some movies
But
where, the theme is
Mhm.
the men and women trying to learn appreciation for each other's role. And,
Mhm.
like I've seen so many movies where, where they're not getting along, they're fighting, they don't value each other's role. And then at some point, they'll be like, okay, well, if you think my job is so easy, you do my job. And then the other person will be like, well, if you think my job's so easy, you do my job. And then they try to do each other's jobs. And then they realize, oh my God, the other job that I thought was so easy is totally not so easy. And I
Yeah.
cannot do it so bad. And now I can really appreciate my partner for what a wonderful job they do at at their job.
Exactly. And I think that's why people don't only see one side. It's like, because you do the job so well, you make it look so easy, but
Yeah.
you're thinking the 20 different things that needs to happen. You're juggling all that. And oftentimes when you're stepping on the outside, you're another person. You don't realize all the things you're considering and figuring out, problem solving, balancing and juggling. And there's a lot that goes on. So I think that is a great way of actually seeing, like, wow, you do a lot of stuff for the family, or for the relationship, and for your job, whatever it is. And even have conversations about it. I think that's where conversations can help. If you can't really put yourself in that person's role entirely, like those
Yeah.
shows, well, then have those conversations to understand, wait, why does this feel so challenging? Or what are you doing that's, like, just understanding any issues or problems, or even understand, like, what is it that you do that make it so amazing and so easy, right? So it's learning and appreciate each other.
Yes. And I think that I just realized another thing with my grandparents that they did for each other that helped them to really appreciate each other so much is that even though, like, for example, my grandmother never worked in the business that my grandfather had, she accompanied him so much of the time, and went with him and saw what he was doing. And similarly with my grandfather, he made time to stay at home and just be there. And when he was at home, he paid attention to what was going on and who was doing what. And so, like, for example, when um like, he would notice times when there was too much on my grandmother's plate, and he didn't necessarily step in and say, okay, I will do this work for you, but he would call on someone else in the family, or call one of the other, like, we had my grandparents happily, like, I mean, they didn't start out very rich, but my grandfather was a brilliant business person. And eventually they ended up being millionaires, multimillionaires. And so then they had like this whole um like army of servants and people working at and in their place. So he would like call, and he'd be like, help help your grandmother, take over and do this task. Or he would call a servant and be like, you do this is your job, and I don't want to see my wife doing this anymore. And so he really paid attention to what was going on. And so wow, y- I don't think I ever fully appreciated this
Wow.
before, that this was like one way that just through observation, um,
Mhm.
they were able to gain more of an appreciation of each other's roles, and support each other.
That's amazing. Wow. That's amazing that you recognize that and had that awareness. Even thinking about it now, like realizing how much that contributed to it. It might seem so small, but it's really the little things like that in life that really make the difference. And it is through observation. It is through, knowing your partner so well. Like, ooh, you're kind of kind of guessing intuitively know, okay, this is where you need help, or hey, stepping in to ask you, do you need help with anything?
Mm,
And also being aware of what's going on with them to ask, hey, are you okay? Right. And I think just having that ability to understand each other so well and be able to step in and create that support makes both sides feel so appreciated. Right. And and I think that's, oh, just hearing that, it definitely, it's like, wow, that definitely, all these little things make a difference. And because they continue making the effort, like we were talking about earlier,
mhm.
your grandfather made the effort, your grandmother made the effort,
Yeah.
right? Because the continual making effort, they didn't really just let things slide or be like, oh, whatever, that's your problem, I'm not going to handle it. It's go, no, it is your problem. So how could we figure it out together? Right. And that's what really makes a relationship so important and so supportive
Yeah.
too, right? Because I think life becomes easier for both sides when you have that support.
Yes. Ah, oh my gosh, Kat. I think we could keep talking forever.
I know. I know.
And we need to wrap up.
Mhm.
Do you have any last thoughts for right now?
Yeah, I think one last thing to kind of wrap up things that we've talked about earlier of, just kind of having conversations of, telling your partner where you're looking for, what you want and how you need to feel fulfilled or happy or what is it that you need, right? And you just want to remind people that your request is not a demand.
Mm,
Your request is a conversation, an opportunity for you and your partner to actually become closer as a couple because you're communicating with each other what your needs are and kind of create that space to have that being fulfilled. So yeah, that's my last little thought to share with your audience.
thank you, Kat. That's a brilliant,
Yeah.
wonderful, very wise thought for us to start wrapping up on. And for my last thought to share, I will just say, please, to everyone who's listening, please check the show notes because we will be dropping Kat's links in the show notes so you can connect with her and get some help and support in getting more clear
Yes.
about who you want, what you want for yourself and in your relationships. And make it more fun and easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
Oh,
you so much, Samia. Had so much fun talking to you and just hearing those amazing stories from your life and your grandparents. So thank you for sharing and
thank,
all that you do.
thank you, Kat. And until we connect again, I just wish you lots and lots of peace and joy.
Thank you.